We're starting a new series today as we kick off the new year, and we're going to talk about spiritual gifts. When you find your place of service, it brings such meaning and joy to your life, and God's wired you in a certain way. When I am able to utilize my spiritual gifts and point another person toward Jesus, it's the most fulfilling moment of my week. And I pray that that'll be the reality for you as well. When you serve in your area of gifting, two things happen. You bear fruit, you're fruitful, and you're also fulfilled. So we're going to jump into that today and do that for the next couple weeks. All right, so Happy New Year. I hope you've had a good break and ready to head into the year here. I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm so grateful looking back over the last 6-8 months or so and seeing Crossroads Impact Church get up and running, and so grateful for you guys being together. Now we're going to continue to get serious about accomplishing the mission. And the amazing thing, as I've said, is God invites us to participate, not just to watch, but to participate. So I've been covering spiritual gifts, this topic of spiritual gifts, in our Sunday gatherings, but I want to bring that same topic into our impact group so that you guys can discuss it more specifically and honestly more personally, because each of us are wired a certain way. So I think that these studies are going to really open us up to some really good conversations. 1 Corinthians 12:1, Paul says this, "Now concerning spiritual gifts, brothers, I do not want you to be uninformed." So I don't want you to be uninformed about spiritual gifts. So we're going to do a pretty thorough look at them over the next several weeks. God always uses people in every generation to accomplish the ministry. I said this a few weeks ago at church, you may remember. Right away with Adam, God creates everything, and he says, Adam, I want you to participate in what I've done here. I want you to tend the garden for me. And so Adam, in a sense, partnered with God in that part of creation. And then Noah, of course, God says, Noah, you're going to participate in my message of redemption and salvation to your generation. And then we go to Abraham, and we could go right on down the line to Abraham. God says, listen, you're going to participate, Abram. You come follow me, and I'm going to, through your family lineage, I'm going to bring the Messiah. And so God, generation after generation, He welcomes His people to participate in what He's doing in the world. And so as we get to the church, we know that it's no different. God always uses people to accomplish the mission. And now for us in our day, He's calling us to participate uniquely and specifically through the church. And to do that, He gives us spiritual gifts and He empowers us. Jesus said this in Acts chapter 1, verse 8. He said, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." So what I want to do, you guys can read 1 Corinthians 12 together. That would be a great idea. What I want to do is pull out 4 conversation topics that come out of the biblical teaching on spiritual gifts. Again, you may remember this or you may not from 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I want to bring it into this environment so you guys can talk about it. You know, when I preach, I talk and you guys listen, but when you're in an impact group, everybody gets to, share and ask and participate. So here's a couple principles that come out of 1 Corinthians 12 about spiritual gifts. The first one is this: everyone gets a gift or gifts. So I want you guys to talk about that in a few minutes. 1 Corinthians 12:7, Paul says, "To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good." The reality is we will get more done together than we will on our own. There's a principle in the world, in business, whatever, but it certainly applies here, and it's this word synergy. Now, we all know the word synergy, but let me give you the definition because I really think it helps me understand, oh yeah, the church is a bigger picture than just what I'm up to or even just what I see. God's up to so much more through everybody. So here's the definition for synergy. It's the interaction or cooperation of 2 or more organizations, substances, or other agents to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate parts. Right? So as we all identify and embrace and release the gifting that God's given to us, we will accomplish so much more together than we will on our own. So that's the first principle. We have to understand everyone gets a gift or gifts. And then The next principle is this: spiritual gifts are always given to be used. We should not come to faith in Jesus and never participate in ministry, because when He saves us, He calls us into ministry and He equips us, right? So Paul is our great leader in the New Testament. He's writing to a young pastor named Timothy, who he has been discipling, and he's no doubt helped Timothy to identify his gifting. Timothy was a teacher, he was a leader, he was a church leader. And so Paul wrote him a letter. They were separated by many miles, and he writes him a letter. And he says this, he says, Timothy, I remind you to fan into flames the spiritual gift God gave you when I laid my hands on you. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. Paul, in talking to the people that he was leading and shepherding and teaching, said, don't be unaware of your spiritual gifts and fan them into flame. Like fully activate the spiritual gifts that God's placed within you. And I pray that over people all the time. It's possible I've prayed for you or someone in your group, and you would say, yeah, Ralph prayed that over me. I prayed all the time, God, stir the gifts that you've placed within them, right? The church needs you engaged. And so Paul writes this to the Romans. He says, so if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you're a teacher, teach well. If your gift is encouraging others, be encouraging. If it is giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. See, this is the language that's around the spiritual gifts. It's a really big deal. Spiritual gifts are God's plan for the church to accomplish its mission. So the next principle we can pull out is this. The gifts are given for the common good. And what that means is whatever gift you've been given, that gift's not given to you so that you can be elevated. It's not given so that you can have a level of importance. It's given for the good of others. You know, and there's a humility that comes with serving in this context. And, you know, when you see fruit in your ministry, when, you know, the world might call it success, but in the church we call it fruit. When fruit's happening, you're just humble about it because, you know, you just know God's given it to you and it's for the common good. So 1 Peter 4, 10 and 11, Peter says this. He says, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks is one who speaks oracles of God. Whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To Him belong glory and dominion forever and ever. You know, we don't want to follow the world and the world's pattern in the way that we do church life. And I say that because it's so easy to see someone with a gifting and elevate them. And the Bible does say to give honor where honor's due. So we should all honor each other in that respect. But there's not an elevation of one gift over another. So we've got to be careful that we just don't fall into the world's pattern of sort of admiring somebody else and their gifting or the fruit that they're producing. God has called us all to our part. And when we do it well, we point all the credit and all the glory to Him. And we recognize we are just a part of a bigger whole. You know, I'm confident that when we get to heaven, the people with the most glorious, beautiful crowns, the people with the biggest mansion on the hill, I know that's just an idiom, but you know, they're going to be people that we've never heard of. They're not going to be people who are on TV or people we've read about from days gone by. Most likely, they're just going to be people who are faithfully serving, in a sense, in obscurity, but God noticed. So the gifts are given for the common good. And then, of course, this is how the whole thing works. All the gifts work together. And so many of you are familiar with this language in 1 Corinthians 12, where Paul equates the church to the human body. Let me read the scripture for you. It's so clear. I think this is an amazing illustration. Paul says this, for just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again can the head to the feet, I have no need of you. Guys, there's no part that exists on its own. We're interdependent. In order for it all to work, it all has to be together. And so it's a beautiful principle. Ephesians 4:16, very simple. Paul says, listen, he makes the whole body fit together perfectly. He makes it fit perfectly. As each part does its own special work, it helps the other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love. And so these are 4 principles we pull out of 1 Corinthians chapter 12 about spiritual gifts. We're just getting started talking about them within the context of the impact group. I want to give you plenty of time to unpack this. Be talking about, people that you have seen or known, maybe now or maybe in other years of your church experience, where you would identify, hey, that person definitely had this gift or that gift. And here's the fruit that person produced. Or maybe you can talk about your own gifts. Maybe you're fully aware of your spiritual gifting. That's great. But my guess is there are at least some, and maybe many, you're not sure yet. And you haven't ever really pressed into that. Well, we're going to press into this for several weeks. You're going to have the opportunity to talk about it with your group members. And listen, we're also, as a church, at some point early this year, we're going to be offering some spiritual gifts classes, because this is a big deal to me. Like, this isn't just hey, let me figure out a topic to talk about on Sundays and a topic to talk about in impact groups. This is core of what the church is all about. And so everybody who's going to be a part of Crossroads, everybody who wants to take their faith seriously, I want you to know your spiritual gifts. I want you to be supported and encouraged and equipped within that gifting so that you can be released in it. You'll never be more fulfilled in your entire life than when you know that you participated with God in the work He's doing in our day. With this one life that God's given us, we can use it to partner with Him to change the world. That's what spiritual gifts are about. That's why the church exists, and you're a part of it. So have a great conversation, and I'll see you soon.